Hello, band geeks! I am back on the couch where I usually film, even though it's a little bit messy because I've got family staying with me for right now because it's the holidays. Also, happy holidays. What I'm going to do today are 5 more clarinet hacks for you when you're practicing. These are things that I sort of realize when I'm doing practicing of my own, and I write them down. So whenever I get about 5, I tell you about them. In this case, I have had 5 for a little while. I have already filmed this video, but it's stuck in the computer that's dead. So 5 more clarinet hacks for you. Let's just get right into it. The first clarinet hack is how to mark your music. So the number one thing that bothers me when I am teaching or I'm doing a lesson and someone brings in their music and I see a note that's circled, I ask, why is that note circled? And I usually get the response, oh, it's a C sharp because there's a C sharp in the key signature, but it looks like a C natural, so I just circled it so I remember to play a C sharp. That bothers me because when you're practicing, if you just circle a note, it takes a little bit of time to go back and think, why did I circle that note in the first place? And then you end up missing the note anyway because it's circled and it's not entirely clear. It's great that you're circling things and realizing that you need to fix the mistakes that you've been making in your playing. However, there's a better way to do that. And that is to write the actual sharp, flat, accent, staccato, whatever it is you're missing, just mark in the actual symbol that is used in music. So if you have, say, a C going to an E flat, but the E flat is in the key signature, so it's not marked, and you've been playing an E natural, instead of circling the E, just put a flat sign next to it. It's so easy, and it will make a huge amount of difference. Then, when you're done marking in the flat, put like a little bracket connecting the C to the E flat, so that bracket, when you're playing music, that will draw your eye to that interval, so you know that you've had an issue with it, and you know to pay attention to the E flat because it's now marked in, and then you won't make the mistake ever again. You're not going to be judged by anybody for marking in like corrected mistakes in your music. What you will be judged for is missing the same freaking E flat that you've been playing in E natural this entire time. Because at this point, you've learned the E natural. One time back when I was a little, high school player and I was kind of a jerk, I actually marked in an F sharp on the person's music next to me because she kept playing an F natural, so I actually took her music and wrote in a sharp, and we never spoke again. Marking in your music this way will also help you because sometimes, maybe later in life, if you do go into music, sometimes you'll get your music at the rehearsal and you have one rehearsal and then 3 hours later you have the performance. So if you've got 6 sharps in your key signature and you play, I don't know, an A natural instead of an A sharp, just mark it in because you don't have time to be making any mistakes. The second hack is how to get better at playing high notes. And the short answer for this is practice. So the way you get better at altissimo notes is sort of the way that you get better in the gym. So let's say you go into the gym, you're not going to go over to a 200-pound weight and lift it up very easily if you've never lifted weights before, unless you're a superhero. So how do you work up to the 200-pound weight? You get lighter weights and you work your way up to the 200-pound weight. That's kind of like how it is when you're learning your altissimo notes. At first, they're not going to be so great, but if you keep doing it all the time, eventually you're going to build the muscles in your mouth that will help raise the pitch, because sometimes they're a little bit flat when you first start. They're going to help raise the pitch and you're going to get a lot more comfortable playing in that range. And the way to do that is through long tones. So yes, long tones on high notes are annoying, not just for you, but the people around you and sometimes your neighbors. And you know what? tough cookies, because the more you play them, the more comfortable you will be, and then they'll start sounding really, really good. So take the time to play long tones on your altissimo notes. And the interesting thing about this is if you start every practice session playing long tones in that high range, say maybe your highest note right now is the G above the staff, if you play the highest note you can possibly play at the beginning of every practice session, suddenly things like C's, D's, E's, C sharps, anything above the staff in that range suddenly won't seem so high anymore. The third clarinet hack has to do with orange peels. Now hear me out. If you are a person who does not have a humidifier for a wooden clarinet or your reeds, and it is winter time and the heat is on and the humidity in the air has vanished, you're going to want to be listening to this. Wooden clarinets, or if you don't have a wooden clarinet, your reeds are still made of cane and they will warp when the weather gets really dry and they won't last as long and they'll be kind of crappy sounding. So you want to find a way to get moisture back into your clarinet and also your reeds. And the way to do that is to, let's say you really like eating oranges or lemons or limes or any sort of citrus, save the peels. So in a pinch, an orange peel can help humidify your case. What you're going to want to do is you're going to want to save the peels after you eat the fruit, because you should be eating citrus anyway in winter because vitamin C will help fight off cold and all that stuff. So take your orange peels, take your clarinet, lay your swab over your clarinet, and lay the orange peels upon the swab, and then close your case. What's going to happen is the moisture in those orange peels is going to be released into the case, and that's going to humidify the case for you until you get time to go to an actual music store and buy an actual legitimate humidifier. Nothing humidifies your clarinet better than an actual scientifically engineered humidifier, and they're not that expensive. Sometimes it's just a sponge in a rubber thing that has holes in it and you just wet it, and that's all you need to do. Now, when the orange peels are like totally dried out, and they're useless after that because then they'll get moldy and they'll start rotting, and you don't want any sort of mold situation happening in your clarinet case. If you've watched my reed videos before, you will know that mold is an issue. So get rid of the orange peels after they're completely dried out, because that means that there's no more moisture inside and therefore they are useless. I need a lighter. The next clarinet hack involves fire! So let's say you're getting ready for a performance and a pad falls off of your clarinet. What are you gonna do? Well, first thing is you're going to need a lighter. So let's say that pad falls out and it's off and it's on the floor and you're like, oh crap, I'm about to go on stage. I have a solo. What am I going to do? Well, you pick the pad off the floor, first of all, put it in a place that that is, nearby. And then I'm not going to do this because I actually do have a pad on this. My clarinet is not that janky yet. But what you're going to want to do is when pads are attached to the clarinet, they're not attached with glue inside this little cup, they're attached with resin. You don't have resin as a typical household product, and you don't want to be using glue because glue gets everywhere, and if you do it wrong, then you're in trouble. Take your clarinet like this, parental supervision required if you're not old enough, by the way, and matches do not work. Don't use a match because you'll risk burning your hand, but you take a lighter and you hold it underneath the cup like this for a few seconds, and that's going to melt the resin, and then while the resin is melted, you take your pad, you put it back in the cup, you push it down, and wait a few seconds just to let it cool down because you just had fire on it. You're going to want to push it in, make sure that it's all set, and then you take a piece of cloth and you wipe off the soot that's going to form, and your pad is all set. This is obviously a hack. Any sort of repair or modification that you're doing to a clarinet, I always say go to a professional, because you never know what else you could be messing up or screwing up for you in the future. And it's better just to get it done right the first time professionally than to kind of do it and then have it just be a problem for the rest of your years playing until you have more stuff get messed up, and then it'll just be, expensive. Don't do this lighter trick if you have a plastic clarinet because it will affect the actual body of the clarinet and make it bubbly because heat and plastic don't mix. Not that heat and wood mix, really, but I mean, the varnish on clarinets, like, it won't catch on fire if you do it correctly. The last thing that I'm going to talk about is how to apply cork grease, and if you already know how to do that, you can just, like, end the video here. But no one ever really talks about this, but when you apply cork grease, you're going to want to, and by the way, I don't like this cork grease, I'm just using it to, like, use it up so that it's gone. But, you know, you put, like, an ample amount around the entire circumference of the instrument. Is circumference the right word? I was never good at math. And then before you put the bell on, you just rub it in. It's like the actual rubbing in part that I missed when I was, you know, first learning. So if you're a beginner, that's how you put on cork grease. You want to rub it in and then either wash your hands or find a piece of cloth that you wipe the soot off of when you fixed your pad and wipe your thumb off, and then it'll be good to go. Because when you rub it in, make sure that the cork is not only completely covered, but you don't have any excess sort of on the cork so that when you, like, put the connecting piece on, it doesn't all, like, bunch up around, you know, the place of, you know, it doesn't like squish up and bunch up around here. Hopefully these clarinet hacks will help you in your practicing, so remember to mark your music correctly. Remember to practice long tones on your high notes. Remember to get an actual legitimate humidifier, but if you can't get to a store and a pinch and orange peel works, remember, keep your clarinet maintained, and if you need to fix a pad, now you know how to do it. And remember to keep your clarinet corks lubricated at all times. That's all I have for you today. I hope you have wonderful holidays, and I will see you in my next video, so go practice.